Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Shrewsbury Zoning Board of Appeals public hearings for Monday, August 29th, 2016. Before we get to the public hearings portion of our meeting, there's a couple house cleaning items that we take care of initially. No minutes tonight, correct? Okay. Next order is to approve bills. There are 6 bills totaling $14,798. Approximately $11,000 to Weston and Sampson Engineers for the sewer peer review, $2,600 to Graves Engineering for site plan peer review, $430 to the Telegram and Gazette for the July 25th legal notices, $380 for Paul Haverty, our 40B peer review consultants, $200 to Tad and Howard for the water peer review, and $165 to B&B Printing for our return address envelopes. Just as a point of interest, the peer review fees are actually paid for by the applicant on the 40B project, and it's deposited with the town in escrow, and then we disperse it as the bills come in.
Are those fees that are related to the 40B project within the allocation?
Yeah. Yeah.
I move to approve payment of all of those bills.
Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Aye.
Richard, you gonna hide behind that? Yeah. Okay. Works for me.
Our first 6:30 hearing is the continued hearing of 115R Colonial Drive, Imran Khusro, single-family lot with no frontage.
Ronnie, can I just suggest that you introduce Chris to the entire town?
Chris is the assistant town planner who will be sitting in on the ZBA meetings from today forward.
We're going to give Kristen another night off.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, respectfully, my name is Richard Ricker, and my law offices are at 11 Maple Avenue, and I'm here for the petitioner, Mr. Khusro, who's standing to my right. You can have a seat. As you may recall, this matter was before you in a I would suggest, substantially different way the last time we were before you. This is a request to build one home now on approximately 8 acres of land situated on land which formerly had frontage, but lost that frontage from the building of Interstate 290. As part of the process of doing the taking for 290, and I believe you have in your packets sometime back, I did submit a copy of the actual language. The Commonwealth established a right-of-way, basically, 50-foot wide right-of-way, which runs from the end of Colonial Drive along the back side of the lots, and eventually ends up on this land. And that right-of-way was established for the purpose of granting the owners of the land where rights of egress and access therefrom would otherwise become inoperative due to the limited access provisions of the highway. Said easements would consist of the right of access to replace their access that they've lost. So basically what the Commonwealth did, without granting variances and without granting anything else, is they granted people the right to get to their land. Specifically, they mentioned in the taking document to construct or otherwise use the lots. And in this particular case, you have a 7 or 8 acre piece of land.
Over 8 acres.
It's a little over 8 acres. At one point, it had enough frontage for 9 lots. Now, Mr. Khusro is, as the owner, requesting permission to build 1 house on this property. Instead of, as you may recall, we previously asked for more than that. Grading sheets that I've given you for the driveway would not necessarily be applicable. I just wanted to show you and remind you what the grade is for the driveway going in, but it would be simply a single driveway that would go from the end of Colonial Drive within that 50-foot right-of-way in order to access this particular house. The hardship, obviously, is the fact that it has no access due to the highway running through, and the situation of the land where it was and where it sits now is it has no access due to that limited access highway being constructed. With respect to derogation of the bylaw, I would suggest that there is none, because this is clearly a case that was otherwise buildable before 291N, but in addition, you're talking about a very large lot, albeit it has some grade issues, there's no question about it, but we all know that you can build on almost any grade these days, and the fact is that it is a 8+ acre piece of land for a single family home, in keeping with the zone. I would suggest further that we're talking about just a single driveway that would be running behind the other houses up in that neighborhood, and that therefore that would not cause any substantial detriment or nuisance or harm or otherwise to the neighbors or to the general public. With that, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, just to go over, prior it was 2 houses and a common driveway,
Yes,
so there's no variance for a common driveway needed.
that's correct.
And the only variance is basically what the deed is to put in what the deed restriction is calling for.
Right.
Okay. Anybody?
I have no problems.
Yeah.
I just have a question in regards to the grading when you put the house in for the abutters, just to control erosion.
The erosion actually would go away from those houses. It actually degrades.
It degrades?
Yeah. So it wouldn't be an issue there.
All right.
Anybody in attendance wish to be heard on this? What's that?
May I add one thing?
Yeah, sure.
I spoke with Mr. Ricker earlier this afternoon, and we discussed the plans that were presented before you, and please correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, that the driveway that is shown is currently designed to common driveway standards, and
That's
it's
correct.
anticipated that the driveway for a single-family home will be narrower than is shown and would have less grading impact than is shown.
Right,
Is that correct?
With all due respect, I thought I was saying that. but
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify.
Yep.
That's clearer, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody in attendance wish to be heard on this matter? Yes, sir. Please state your name for the record.
Michael Micatarian, I reside at 28 Bridle Path. I'd like to ask the board some questions. In general, what is the basic responsibility of the board in situations like this? From the standpoint of acknowledging the surrounding residents' point of view, town's point of view? Could somebody give me a little bit of
Yeah,
clarification?
each application stands on its own. If someone is coming for a variance, the hurdle is there has to be a hardship for us to grant the variance. The hardship has to do with the land, with the slope of the land, something with that. It can't be a financial hardship.
Okay. What about from the standpoint of taking into consideration the feelings of the surrounding property owners that are immediately impacted? I believe there were people within 300-foot radius.
If you're within 300 feet, you get notified.
Do you know how many people that actually entailed?
I could probably have it in here. 13.
Okay. I've got 16 signed forms from 16 of the very immediate residents directly impacted by this variance if it's approved. And obviously, the feelings of going from 8 lots to 8 houses rather to 2 houses down to 1. Sounds like we're not being very flexible, but there shouldn't be any houses down there. You've got the surrounding property owners in that area that probably combined pay well in excess of $300,000 a year in real estate taxes, have put millions of dollars into their properties, have all followed the rules, have all followed the same bylaws that the town has established, and here we are trying to make an exception in a situation that is very, very highly questionable. If it wasn't, it wouldn't have gone through the whole process it's been going
Well, it has to go through the process because it was taken, the frontage was taken, and the
Correct.
deed restriction was put in to allow, with the board's approval, a buildable lot. The issue I had last time, which was turned down on a 3-2 vote, was my reading of that did not allow more than one house.
Correct.
I believe it allows a house. I believe that's where the standard is for this particular lot.
Okay. How much consideration does the board take into account from the surrounding property owners to issue a variance which is kind of on the fence?
Well, the thing is, I don't see this one as being on the fence. Yeah, there were 3 votes in favor of it already for 2 houses. So there wasn't a lot of issue of whether, on the board.
So the
At
fact
that
that
point.
the property was purchased,
If
knowing in advance of it being purchased as being landlocked,
it was purchased knowing it being landlocked, but knowing that there was the deed restriction in there from the Commonwealth with the language that was in there. That is basically, for me, is what is considered the hardship.
okay. So the fact that 16 property owners are opposed, it has no bearing on the board?
Not from that respect, no. It has bearing in the sense of if there was, just the fact that you don't want it is not bearing enough.
So it's got no bearing on it?
Not with you would have to exercise some form of detriment that this would have that is not a financial detriment. That's something you want to help me out more on what?
Sure. So the Board of Appeals, by state statute, can issue a variance if there is hardship related to the land associated with the shape of the lot, the topography of the lot, or the soils of the lot. And in this case, there is an easement granted by the state, I believe, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, to allow for access to this property through easements of others' properties. To use this as a buildable lot with permission from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Notification to abutters is part of the state and local process, and we welcome commentary, but we would want to hear constructive commentary, not just we don't want another house, because we don't want another house. So we welcome your commentary if it's constructive commentary.
It doesn't seem to make a difference. I don't know why the town spends so much money sending out notices, because in the end, it really doesn't make a difference. How about the simple fact that all the people that built homes in that area had to pay what they paid, had to buy properties, had to follow the rules, and now all of a sudden, somebody does not have to follow the exact same rules, the same guidelines. Not opposed to growth, not opposed to having properties being built, but it
had the state language, had the state not put the language in that document with the taking of the frontage, this would be, in my view, would not have gone through. But the fact that the easement was put in there because the frontage was taken, to me, that is the hardship.
Another concern, obviously, is there's going to be an awful lot of not knowing exactly how far into that so-called driveway, the amount of trees that are going to be removed, the impact on the additional sound. One of the biggest issues on bridle path is noise, and it gets loud. It gets extremely loud. There's several houses up there that are for sale right now that I know for a fact have not sold because of the noise factor from buyers not realizing how noisy it actually gets up there. Has the town done anything with regard to taking that into account with regard to the additional noise factor?
I'm not sure what the factor would be.
Have they even considered that as a detriment to the other property owners?
The easement allows him to put a driveway through. There's not, he can do that by right, even if we don't put a house there. He could put the driveway through without our approval and use the land for something else that wouldn't need our approval. So that has no bearing on this approval. It did in the last hearing because he needed a common driveway, which it was longer than what the bylaw allows. But for this, it's just the easement, which is there by right. State your name for the record, please.
Huh?
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Massad, M-A-S-S-A-D, 22 Bridle. I'm not following the discussion too closely here. The last time we met on this, there were at least two issues. One was the length of the driveway.
Correct.
And the second was the frontage.
Correct.
I don't understand what the easement has to do with the length of the driveway.
It has-
Since you just said,
The easement, the length of the driveway in the prior, it was a common driveway for two houses. And the zoning bylaw limits how long a common driveway could be.
but
So
there's
when
not
there were
a
two-
limit for a
There's no limit on how long.
single driveway?
No. There's no limit. So there's no, they're not coming to us for anything on the driveway.
Okay, so the only thing that's being requested is permission to build without frontage?
Correct.
And why is that not a problem?
Because the state put in the taking of the frontage that they took for 290 language with ZBA approval to allow building on the lot, to access and to use the lot.
So I still don't follow, because you have regulations within the town, I suspect.
Yep.
That
And
says you
that's
can't
what this
build a
board-
house regardless of what anybody anywhere says. That you can't build a house in Shrewsbury, I'm guessing, that has no frontage, regardless of whatever other peripheral,
Unless there's
Allowances thereof.
unless there's a hardship exhibited. And in my opinion, the hardship is that language.
but he purchased that hardship.
That's okay. The hardship goes with the easement goes with the land.
Okay. So,
The-
we have nothing then.
it doesn't matter that the original owner
What is it they're
didn't do it.
asking for then?
Excuse me?
So what is it now that they're asking for?
They're asking for relief from the zoning bylaw because there's no frontage, which I believe would require 125 feet.
Right, to build
And so-
one lot, they're asking, one single-family home, asking for a variance for the frontage due to the taking of the prior frontage.
Correct.
Due to the construction of 290.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Where the driveway's gonna go, is there much wooded area?
It's all wooded,
There are trees, there are trees.
Are there a lot of mature?
all mature trees.
Excuse me, he's not asking
I
you.
thought I had the floor.
No, you don't. You don't have the floor unless I grant it. And
You just did.
no, I didn't.
So you-
Go ahead.
And how wide did you say the driveway's gonna be? It's not gonna be the width of a common driveway, but it's gonna be narrower.
It would be the
Probably
size of.
12, just 12 feet.
So you're taking 12 feet
Yeah.
and clearing
Yes.
for the driveway.
Yeah, and he would, I've spoken with him about this, and the intent would be to wind it through the 50-foot right-of-way in an effort to avoid too much destruction, too much construction. So you can do things with a driveway that you can't do with a common driveway.
Right.
obviously.
Thank you.
State your name for the record. State your name for the record.
Yeah, Neil Shaw, 32 Bridle Path.
Yep.
I have a follow-up question, and I'm coming into this sideways, but I'd like to understand what the erosion plan is. We're going to be cutting some trees. It's a pretty steep grade. There's going to be runoff coming down here. My property is this. So once the house is built, in addition, we're not only granting this driveway, but it appears that there's going to be a house built on the property.
Can I ask my client to
Implications
do
are
that?
for the other homes in the area.
I'd ask my client to address that.
My name is Mohammed Khusro, and the driveway would have a grade of not more than 5%. It varies from 2% grade to 5%, so it'll be a very gentle, it's not going to be heavy slope. The second thing is, anywhere where there's concern for any erosion, there is enough guardrails and sediment control measures that will be taken to eliminate and alleviate that problem. So it'll be a minimal destruction or disturbance of the property, and there would be sufficient growth on the westerly side to give the neighbors protection from noise.
Okay. And I believe.
one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is Bridle Path higher than where the house is going to sit?
Much higher,
It's much higher.
much higher.
So when you cut into build the house, are there any measures going to be taken to keep Bridle Path homes, their property, from eroding?
We have no control over what they do on their property, but when it comes down, it's on a fairly level area.
What's
that
level where the house is
where
going to
the
go?
house is going to go is very,
You
very
don't have
level
to cut
area.
into any bankings or anything?
No,
It's situated in a fairly
very
level spot.
fairly level area.
Just a follow-up question, since we're getting these clarifications, are these covenants are going to run with the land now that you may seem to be on the path of approving this?
A variance runs with the land.
How can we be assured that the house will be sited on the flat portion of the lot, and the trees that are upgraded from that won't actually be potentially avoiding erosion problem?
The building inspector will not issue a building permit unless the plan presented for the building permit application matches the plan that was presented this evening for the Zoning Board of Appeals. If there's a variation or a deviance from that, they will have to come back to this board for another public hearing for a special, or for a variance modification.
Anybody else? State your name for the record.
Mike Picketarian again. Are there any assurances that additional building lots won't be approved if this is approved at this point?
Yeah, well, the board has not approved more than one. So, yeah. If he wanted to build another house, he would have to come back for approval. I can't say what a future board would do, but it would be highly, highly unlikely the board would ever approve further building on that lot. Actually, we could make it as a condition.
We could make it
We
as
could
a
make it as a
condition,
condition that there be no further building.
because the variance runs with the land.
Right,
Other than accessory buildings.
correct.
Correct.
And that's not a problem.
No, okay. You had another question?
Me?
Yes.
Yes, so I'm still concerned that, relative to erosion, what's only being spoken about, as I understand it so far with regard to erosion, is you're worried about the runoff. I'm worried about the fact that lots of other trees, lots of other everythings are going to be exposed. As the runoff runs away, the hill's going to get steeper and steeper and steeper with the trees gone. I'm also concerned about loss of habitat for all the animals that are in the area. I'm also concerned about the fume buffer right, we have the highway going by, lots of car fumes, truck fumes. The trees provide a wonderful buffer for that, right, because they absorb the fumes and then transform it. And Michael had already mentioned the noise buffer. And it seems like an awful lot of habitat destruction for, I guess it's still a 1,600 foot driveway. It's almost going to be almost an acre of land taken away. Trees, it's all tree area. All those trees are going to be gone, an acre's worth, maybe more.
The driveway itself is not what we're here for, is not what's under consideration. The driveway, he has a right to build without the board's approval. he can put a driveway there to access his land.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with this hearing. In the prior hearing, it did because it was a common driveway that was too long. But for this, it's not part of our process. It doesn't affect, that's not what we're here for.
Okay, understood.
Anybody else? Okay, there being no, for anyone up here? There being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under consideration. You'll be notified of our opinion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Charles Baldwin, 14 Bell Ridge Drive, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7, Table 1, to construct a garage and breezeway 6.1 feet from the side property line in a Residence B1 district upon property located at 14 Bell Ridge Drive. The subject premises on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 27, Plat 252. Is Mr. Baldwin here?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Steve Fleming. Thank you for hearing our presentation. In February of 2015, Mr. Baldwin isn't able to attend because he's been spending a lot of time out of town for a sick relative. I'm here on his behalf. My office is in Woburn, Mass. I'm with Vineyard Engineering and Environmental Services. I'm an LSP, and I'm involved in the oil spill cleanup for the project. Our problem with the site is on February 19th. They had an oil spill. They lost a full tank of gas, a fuel oil. Because of the soil conditions and the high groundwater table, which is a perch water table, everything is slab-on-grade construction. The oil spill, through investigation and excavation, we found that it extended beneath the house, and that was bad enough. But what we did find out is there was over a foot of separate product, or free-floating product, on the water table in this location underneath the garage. The only way for us to really recover that was to pump it, which we did for several months. The spill was a covered spill from an insurance standpoint, so the customer or the client and the applicant, Mr. Baldwin, was very fortunate. Unfortunately, you have to work within the time frames and the constraints of the insurance company, as well as the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. We ended up going through the process of surveying the property, getting asbestos inspection, doing asbestos abatement in anticipation of removal of the house if it was in fact necessary. At a point when we thought that it was going to take a little bit longer, we ended up installing an interceptor trench. And we ended up recovering quite a bit of product, but we could not get the property clean with just pumping. So it was inevitable that we had to remove a portion of the house. It was also very urgent that we do it, and because of the urgency. And this right here on our plan shows the limits of the property. It's a blown-up scale, but this was the limit of our plume that we had known at the time, and we installed that interceptor trench to prevent it from going off-site. The property is relatively level. It's drops off in the back. And we never really know exactly in the beginning process how quick the oil is moving. I can say that within 10 to 15 days, the oil had left the area where it originally was released and had probably migrated to at least here and definitely out to the back of the property. So we weren't quite sure exactly how fast it was moving and whether or not it would impact the neighbor's house. We had anticipated getting a building permit, and in the process of that, we just realized that we didn't have time to get the building permit, so we went out of order. We got the demolition permit so that we could begin excavation. Excavation ended up going almost to the property line, and it was probably just in time to catch it before it went off-site. The green, I'm not sure if you can see the green, but it shows the building is 6 feet from the line. The oil contamination was probably about 4 feet from the property line. We were able to clean up the site after we removed the building, and we knew at the time that we had to reconstruct. Our architectural plans were done. They were into the town. but we were surprised to hear that we needed to have that building permit before we came back. Our hardship is that the driveway and the lot shape and configuration doesn't really allow us to switch things over and put them in front of the house. The house is situated in a way that the kitchen, finish of the kitchen, which is the breezeway, which was completed, and the garage, everything was constructed 6.1 and 6.2 from the line. And when you go through that neighborhood and even some of the neighboring streets, you'll see that 50% of the houses have this extension that is within 6, 5, maybe 10 feet of the line.
So your setback is going to be pretty much what it was prior?
Exactly. We had surveyed it. We have a licensed professional surveyor and civil engineer in our company, and we surveyed it because we knew we had, before we could take it down. We did have the time to do that.
So due to the time constraints of the cleanup, you were unable to do the demo, hold off, to get as a special permit, in which case now you need a variance.
I like to say that we weren't in a panic, but
Right.
we were secretly very concerned about it becoming, and the neighbor's property was, to make matters worse, was up for sale and they had a buyer. So we wanted to give that neighbor a comfort level that, we can get this. And
Right.
the insurance company gave us permission, which is really the first time we've removed a house. It's unfortunate. It's not something that's common. It's heartbreaking to take down someone's house. Fortunately, it was the garage and a portion of the kitchen. Unfortunately, as awful as it is to say, our client was traveling quite a bit for a sick relative. So our hardship is that the house is set up and the driveway is set up, and that everything has got to be placed right back to where it was because it won't work anywhere else.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
No, I have no
You're all good?
problem.
Yeah.
Is this going to be rebuilt on a slab or foundation?
It's going to be built on a foundation. The breezeway is a slab foundation. We will put the slab foundation back. The garage is going on a foundation.
Is the rest of the house on slab?
Yes.
It is, okay.
Yes. There's a high water table.
Right.
And the problem with the subsurface soils is that for the first 4 feet or 5 feet, you have granular materials. They're somewhat dense, but very porous. And then below that, we have a really dense glacial till with clay materials in it. So we were also concerned, not just so much with what we knew that it was going in this direction, but we were also concerned with how bad it would go underneath the house. At a certain point, funding is not available to replace everything. So it was a sense of urgency for our own client as well. And at this point, we are done and doing some monitoring and ready to rebuild.
The plume never trespassed on a butter's property?
No, we actually caught it, but we had to move very quick. We had to move when we moved.
So if you didn't move the way you did, they would have trespassed on somebody else's property, and it would have, okay.
We had, within weeks, we had detected it at very high levels, but not with the product in B5, which is back here. That was within weeks. Within a few months, by June, we had this interceptor trench already installed because we knew. And at that point, we know we had 6 feet around the edge. We knew it was tight just from some of our preliminary survey information because we needed to know how we were going to access the site to clean it up if we weren't going to take the building down. So we had concerns, and we knew that we couldn't even dig this trench over here without impacting the neighbor's property. And then when we found out how it was moving laterally, we really had a concern with the main part of the house. And there is some levels remaining below the bottom of the house, but there's no exposure, there's no risk. And basically the environmental portion, in that neighborhood, there's been several spills. Fortunately, they were able to get them quick. In this case, it just moved in a different direction. We were unlucky, but at the end of the day, when we took the house down, which again, is the only time we've ever done that, we were able to get it within 4 feet of the property line.
Okay. Anyone else? We're all good? Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? Okay, there being no further questions. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see. Go ahead. State your name for the record, please.
Martin Young. I'm on a butter in the back, 22 Atwood Lane. And I have more of a question with the cleanup than the rebuilding, which I have no problem with whatsoever. But as the person who's in the line towards the creek where the oil will go, how safe is my property? I know there was a trench of some kind built back there.
Yes.
You're talking mostly about lateral, but what about posterior in terms of the cleanup?
If it's okay, I'd like to answer
Yep,
that
sure.
question because it's pertinent to the cleanup, but not to the variance. This trench right here was for your purposes. Your property drops off in the back to your lot. We found that the oil was moving in that direction. We found that it was very much pooled in this area of the site and beneath the garage. So we started pumping it right away. When we finally had installed this trench, it had moved into the trench. So we had cut it off, and that's a cutoff. If you looked at this green, you can see there's blue marks all around there. We're delineating the full extent of contamination vertically and horizontally, and our reports are online and they're public information. And I can actually give you some information that will help you access them so you can read them, and then it has our contact information where you can call us right up and we can discuss it with you. Our client is probably happy to explain what's going on with the neighborhood. In spite of how difficult it was to remove the house and to excavate and to go through this process and delays for the client and the neighborhood as well, you know, we're pretty proud and happy that we got to the point we're at now. We just want to get to this next step, putting it together.
He's been very open and willing, and I'd love to get that contact information.
I have a card, you can email me and I'll have the information tomorrow or tonight.
Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? There being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you. Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Techco Builders, Inc., 2 Brookdale Street, Worcester, Mass. for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 4-B to remove and replace the second floor of an existing non-conforming single-family dwelling in the Residence B2 district upon property located at 8-10 Fairlawn Circle. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 39, Plot 118. Welcome.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. We are tonight applying for a special permit, and with all due respect, if you please can refer to the explanation of our case, and the memorandum was sent by Patty, the inspector of the building, to you guys.
Yeah. So you're just taking down a second floor and rebuilding?
Yes, sir.
And you're keeping the setbacks exactly the same?
Even we changed some frontage because it used to be a porch, 7
Right.
feet, and we removed the porch, so we got more frontage now.
Okay, so it'll be less detrimental. Okay.
I'm all set.
Anyone ever, you have any questions?
set.
You guys?
I'm all set.
We're all set? Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? Okay, there being no further questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you very much. Next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Lisa Juliet, 6 Ashton Drive, Shrewsbury, Mass. for a special permit to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 4-B to build an addition on an existing non-conforming 2-family dwelling in the Residence B2 district upon property located at 491 Oak Street. The subject premise is on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 45, Plot 154. So welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Richard Ricker, for the record, with offices at 11 Maple Ave. I'm an attorney here representing Mrs. Gilliat, who is seated to my right. They own a half of the structure at this particular location, 491 Oak Street. It's a condo, and they own one side. Their plan is to move there. They'd like to put this addition on. The request is for a special permit. The request is based, my reasoning for asking for a special permit in this case is the similar reason to the Gale versus the Gloucester Zoning Board of Appeals, that case in which if you're not changing the nature of the nonconformity, then it comes down to a question of whether or not you are adversely affecting in any substantial way the interests of the butters and the neighborhood. I would suggest to you respectfully that this is going to remain a single-family use on this side of the condominium. It is intended for them to live in it themselves. Her husband, Michael, is in the second row behind us. The bottom line is that I would suggest that it is, I think, apparent that this would not be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than what's there now. You have basically a two-family there. This would still be a two-family, albeit a condo ownership type of two-family rather than an apartment. Again, as noted in Gale, as long as this does not increase the non-conforming nature of the non-conforming in the structure, then it is my position that the board can grant a special permit for this. Any questions?
I assume your Unit 2 neighbor is okay with this?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone? No?
I don't have a problem tonight.
I'm all set.
You all set?
Go ahead. How is this not more non-conforming?
It's the nature of the nonconformity. The nonconformity that is already involved with this is the other side of this house basically has a zero lot line. So the setback is already established as a zero lot line. The house, under the new zoning restraints that we passed at the last town meeting, has a number of nonconformities, which it doesn't meet: the open space, the lot coverage, everything else. That is exactly what the Gale Court dealt with, which was the dimensional changes.
And could you refresh my memory on how the Gale case applies in this case?
Well, the Gale case dealt with exactly that. It dealt with the non-conforming structures, and very specifically, it dealt with side yard setback, which was required at 20 feet. The existing at the time of the request was 17. The proposed setback was 11 feet 10. Front yard setback required was 30 feet. The existing was 18, 9 inches, and the proposed was 21. The rear yard setback required was 30 feet. The existing at the time of the application was 17, and the proposal was for 11. So it clearly established that the dimensions of Gale were expanding towards the sidelines, even within the setback, so therefore increasing the setback issue. However, not the nature of the nonconformance. So you still had the same issue, which is a setback nonconformance.
Go ahead.
How many square feet are you increasing the property, living space? And how much is there already?
Lisa, do you know that?
I don't know off the top of my head the exact dimensions. The addition itself will be a 26 by 26 garage and a 6-foot, it's going to be like a breezeway in between. So it will be 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a living area upstairs.
Upstairs.
Yes.
So you figure maybe 900 square feet,
That was
1,000?
30 by 30, so it's going to be less.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay. You okay?
I did find at the Registry of Deeds there was a variance back in 1968, but it doesn't state what the variance was for, so I don't want to say.
Those were the best kind.
I don't have anything in front of me except for what was on record.
Anyone else? You all set? Anyone in attendance wish to be heard on this? Please state your name for the record.
My name is Elizabeth, and I am the right next door neighbor, 495 Oak Street.
Yep.
I just wanted to find out how if this will affect us at all. Like, we haven't gotten detailed information on exactly what's going to happen. So if this is going to affect us, because we have like a condo fee together. So I just wanted to get some information. We're okay with extension, but we just want to find out how will that affect us as the neighbors right next door.
I think they had a discussion, and I think Lisa thought that they were okay, but
Your Unit 2?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Or we're the ones that
Yep.
share that condo fee, so we just want to see how that's going to affect us financially.
Her concern was that we get a condo policy for the insurance. So her concern was by me increasing the size of my home, if our policy is going to increase in value. So I had explained to her that we would be paying cash for the addition and that we would work it out in our condo docs that any increase would be our responsibility. So it's just, because it's considered a condo, we have to have condo insurance as opposed to each of us having our own. So we would take any financial burden of the increase for putting that on.
Yeah, the plan would be to deal with it on a pro rata per square foot basis.
Does that answer your
I think we
question?
just need to explain that to her.
That's all we wanted to make sure that
Okay.
it's in writing and
Yep.
it's not gonna affect us financially. Besides that, we have no issues.
Okay, thank you for,
It could mean that her fee would go down.
right.
Could.
Could mean
Yeah.
that.
You don't know until you get into it.
Exactly.
Right.
Just saying.
Anybody else wish to be heard on this? There being no further questions or comments, we will take it under advisement. You will be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much.
Our next 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Hangyi Sui, MD, 9 Partridge Hill Road, Shrewsbury, Mass., for a use variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 4, Table 1, to operate an optometry office with associated retail sales, and for a variance under Section 7D1G for parking in the Rural B District upon property located at 196 Main Street. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 20, Plot 2-5. This is the former non-cheese shop.
Okay.
This is the location that you heard a appeal for some few months ago.
Yep.
For a wine and cheese shop, which never came to fruition, and which, as you will recall, you had allowed the appeal.
Excuse me, could you just take it down the hall? Thank you.
The location, again, just for the record, Richard Ricker, attorney, and my office is at 11 Maple Ave, and I'm here representing Dr. Quee, who is a surgeon at UMass and also a professor at UMass Medical School. His wife is here, if you wanted to introduce her.
My wife, Helen, she's an optometrist.
Welcome.
Helen is an optometrist, and this would be a office for her to operate an optometry business. As you can see from the plans that were submitted with this application, the optometry office would have a waiting area, basically a place for display of glasses and things of that nature that go along with optometry shops, and would have 2 offices, 2 treatment rooms, 2 exam rooms, which are at the rear of the present garage area, and upstairs would be 2 private offices. As you are aware, up until very, very recently, this property has been used for chiropractic. And there have been, over the years, at least to my understanding, several chiropractors at different times. And this property, over those years, saw a lot of traffic and had, as you know, expanded the parking areas as a result of the growth of the chiropractic office. And what you see in the plan that's before you, the 2 plans before you, is the existing parking area laid out as it is at present, and based on the chiropractic business that was what was developed. This parking area was not necessarily the subject of too much contention. I guess at the last hearing, there wasn't much contention about it in previous hearings, although I've had some discussions with the building department and the town planning department about the parking area and whether or not the layout as it is before you meets the present guidelines of a parking area, and let me just tell you, it doesn't. The fact is that under today's guideline, this 19-foot aisle here would be required to have 24 feet. So it does not, although it's existing and it's been used as it is for quite a while, and I would suggest to you that, and I would respectfully suggest that I don't think that an optometry shop with 2 treatment rooms would have the kind of traffic that a chiropractic office with multiple chiropractors did. But
quick question.
Yes.
your variance for parking, is that what that is?
Yes.
It's not for spaces, because it looks like you have enough spaces.
My intent was to ask for a variance for the parking lot as it sits.
Okay.
Because what you have is you have an optometrist coming in here, starting a business. In order to try to get this to comply with today's standards, you'd have to take the handicap ramp off the building. You'd have to cut into the concrete by the side of the existing building, and you'd have to reconfigure everything. And I would suggest to you that that's quite an expense for someone going in, starting up in a business like this. But and frankly, the parking lot has been working. I don't know, and I don't think there have been any accidents or any problems in this parking area. I don't know of any problems whatsoever. So, yes, the second request for the variance is to allow that parking lot. The first request is a twofold request, and I did it that way because, as you know, where I have a concern as to whether or not it should be a special permit, I asked for a variance. The change from the chiropractic to the optometry is one thing, but because now they're not going to be living
Right,
in
it's
this
an
house.
in-home business using less than 25%.
It's a change in the nature of the building, so therefore, the thought was that perhaps it would be viewed as a variance instead of the special permit, which would be the extension of the previous nonconformity.
Not unless you're planning on moving in.
Yeah, no, they're not planning.
Okay.
He lives at the hospital. So that's the reason for the request, the alternative request on the first hand. Respectfully, I think that we are all aware of the nature of that corridor in Shrewsbury. There have been a number of requests for variances and businesses down that corridor. There will be more. It is a growing area. It is the interest of businesses in that particular area have been many and have grown. So I would fully expect that you will see more businesses wanting to locate along this stretch of roadway. Probably something that I know it's something that the Master Plan Steering Committee talked about, and probably something that the Master Plan Steering Committee or the Master Plan Implementation Committee will probably take up at a future date relative to zoning issues, much like what we talked about with Route 9 the last time I was in front of you. So that being said, this has been used commercially. It has been used as a commercial business site, and he simply, and Dr. and Mrs. Quee, Dr. and Dr. Simply want to use it for the optometry business, as I've suggested. So if you have any questions.
The only other question I have is, have you addressed with the building inspector her email to you on last Friday? She's got about an 8-point.
There was an 8-point, yes. Thanks. The 19-foot aisle.
That's your variance, yeah.
I mean, that's what
Yeah.
I've suggested to you.
Yep.
Obviously, the parking space 9, that falls within that same category, I would suggest. Handicap parking space is not required. Under the architectural access rules and regulations, anything under 15 spaces does not require a handicap.
Under 15, but this is 15.
Well, we're giving you 15, but we're only required 13 to 14, whichever way you look at it. So if you want to knock us back by 1, then that would be fine.
Take out the garage.
Or you could take out parking space number 9 and create a handicap space where 9 and 10 are today as well. Or take out 11, or take out, use space 11 and do something in that configuration.
Yeah,
Because 11 is near the ramp.
Staff. And could I presume that spaces 14 and 15 are used by staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're talking about the
garage.
The garage, yes. They would be employee spaces.
Yeah.
Yes. And those, as you know, are counted in the calculation.
Right.
So, yes, they would be intended for employee spaces.
So how about that? How about turning 9 and 10 into a handicap spot, and then you're still in compliance? And that way you're okay with the 15. Well, now you're 14.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
I was only pointing out that it wasn't required just
Yeah.
because,
Well, it's required because you have 15.
right.
So, but then, so if we knock it down to 14, either way, you're knocking it down. You're getting to the same thing.
That's fine, but, you know, it's a medical use and
Yeah.
handicap. You know, I would note to you where the handicap ramp is.
Where is it?
Right here. So this is 9 and 10.
Oh.
Handicap ramp is right here.
I guess maybe,
And it runs which way?
You know, I've looked at that. Does it come up?
So they have to come through the parking.
yeah,
lot.
the ramp is here.
Yeah. Can you
So
do
we should
something
do,
right here?
yeah, do 11 and 12.
Yeah.
11 and 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, 11 and 12 is a handicap spot.
I think that's more appropriate
Yeah.
in light of where I see the entrance being.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fine, if that would be a condition, that'd be absolutely fine. Let's see,
Number 5, you're covered by the parking variance.
the other items that pertain to the pre-existing nature of this parking area, and although there is a bunch of natural vegetation already along the side there and around the back where the post office land is, you know, we aren't showing anything on the particular plan itself because, frankly, there's not a lot of room around the parking lot that Dr. Hookinson constructed there. But there is natural vegetation around here. And because of the existing nature of what was there, I was again asking for this to be basically grandfathered by variance. I mean, that's simply what I was asking. Covering the whole gamut of the parking area.
Of the sins. What's your opinion on that one?
Which one? Which one is it?
Number 6.
Number 6?
Yeah.
Well, if possible, I would like to see some plantings occur because we're not sure what is going to happen with the postal facility property. Again, it is zoned commercial, limited commercial business.
Along here.
So you're speaking about the rear of the property?
The rear and the western side of the property with the parking spaces. Again, we don't really have topography information on this site plan, so it's tough.
You don't have a heck of a
I've driven
lot of
by,
space
I've stopped
outside
in,
the-
but I can't say for sure. I would recommend as part of the board's decision, if they approve these variances, that we would require a revised site plan as part of the filing. Revisions for the handicap space as being one, and then a revision if we can look at any potential landscaping or snow storage spaces on the lot.
Yep.
Again, also looking at the dumpster location with the parking spaces 11, 12, and 13, knowing that 11, 12, and 13 may become just 2 spaces, but the safety of the backing into that area as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Richard, how much space is between the parking spaces 1 through 8 and the property line?
Probably 5 to 7 feet.
That's it. So if you were to do any plantings, you'd have to put something that's,
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
could-
and then they may get destroyed by, if you
Right.
plow right against them
Right.
there, that
Yeah.
may get destroyed as well. So I think we should probably look at it administratively if we can do anything.
Yep, okay.
is there anything planted there right now?
Well, there is growth there.
Yeah.
But not,
Growth.
not a lot. Not a lot. That's for sure.
And that's a, next door Pacific East Realty, is that a 2-family next door?
I think Kristen could.
Let me look at,
Yes,
I think it's a
I
duplex,
think it is.
isn't it?
is.
I think it is.
I think it's Tommy Paquette on.
I think there was another one on the other side that would be interesting.
yeah, it's a duplex, 88 through 90.
Tommy Paquette.
I don't know who Pacific East is. I can't
Yeah, I think it is. yeah.
But if you wanted us to show the snow storage and things like that on the final plot plan, I mean, that's
Just so.
clear, yeah.
Just so.
I mean, I think you can find it. I think in light of Kristen's comment about the dumpster location, we'd have to try to find another location for it. Frankly, for years, it hasn't even been on the lot, so.
You're gonna have it accessible for the truck to come in and.
Right, so that is a big issue, and you don't want it out front either,
No.
so. Right.
And also the board may also want to consider when they're deliberating, putting signs on the garage doors saying employee parking only, just so you don't get patients or
Sure, that's no problem.
residents.
Yeah, they'll put a tasteful sign there.
Okay.
Honestly, I mean, what the doctors are trying to do is improve the property, and I think they will.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, Mr. Schatz.
Mr. Ricker, if you could explain the hardship which would justify a change of use from residential to business.
Well, the property's already set up for business.
Well, it's an in-home business, correct?
Yeah, but the majority of the property has been used for business, from the parking areas to the majority of the interior. In fact, even the basement area was used by the previous businesses, which is not planned by the Queen's wife. Yeah, the majority of that house has been set up for business use on the interior.
But it was an in-home business, which is
True.
a special permit as opposed to use variance.
True. True.
And
as you know, oftentimes the use variances, we can't find hardships for those, except for the fact of the location where it is, the fact that it would be a natural for that particular location, it would be a good fit for that particular location. The building itself has
I can agree with the good
been-
fit, but
The building itself has been, as I say, it has been retrofitted. Majority of the building has been retrofitted for business. So I think that actually this use that we're talking about is probably a quieter use than what we've had there before. I mean, again, I think a chiropractic use, Health Source Enterprises, when they were there, I think it was a lot busier than what you're going to
yeah.
see with
How long has it been idle?
about 6 months, 6 or 8 months, because I was in front
That's
of
all?
you. I was in front of you for Health Source Enterprises.
Yeah, okay.
You know, this is similar to what we approved on the corner of O'Donnell Ave and Main Street. We approved a business, they put the parking lot in, it was a residential use.
204 Main Street.
Yeah, I remember because we talked
this
about
basically
the,
is-
we talked about the access,
Yeah.
right turn.
Except that was on O'Donnell, right on O'Donnell.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I know you have nothing. Yeah, okay. Fred, you're okay? Okay. Anybody else in attendance wish to be heard in this matter? So we'll do what you suggested, is make it any other issues administrative.
Right, I think administrative review, but we can
Yeah.
talk about it when you deliberate on your decision.
Okay, perfect. Since no more questions or comments, we'll take it under advisement. You will be notified of our decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've got your agenda. Our final 6:30 hearing is to hear the appeal of Nishith Jain, 6 Jill Circle, Shrewsbury, Mass. Excuse me, for a variance to the Town of Shrewsbury zoning bylaw under Section 7, Table 2, to extend the deck 28 feet from the rear property line in the Residence A District upon property located at 6 Jill Circle. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 28, Lot 274-2. Welcome, and please state your name for the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Zoning Board. My name is Nishith Jain, and I'm the homeowner at 6 Jill Circle. I'm here today to request a variance so that I can extend my existing deck up to 12 feet, so it will sit 28 feet from the rear property line. Just to give you a little bit of background, I had applied for this variance in October of 2014, and I was approved for it. I tried to get my deck built last year, but I couldn't engage the same contractor I had in 2014. And I was unable to find another good contractor last year. And I was unaware that the variance only lasted 1 year.
Yep.
So I'm here to request the same variance again.
This is exactly the same, no changes.
No change.
Everything is exactly the same. Anybody have any questions?
No.
No? Okay. Anybody in attendance have any questions? There being no further questions or comments, we will take it under advisement. You'll be notified of our decision. Thank you. Yeah, okay. Which brings us to our 6:45 hearing, continued from December 14th, 29th, January 25th, February 29th, March 21st, March 28th, April 11th, May 9th, May 31st, June 27th, and July 25th. Smart Growth Design, LLC. Oh, wait, how are we doing this?
Would you mind going there? I'll leave you, please leave it or Michelle.
Can I do something? Yeah.
You don't want to be
Hey, good. Long time no see.
I get all the women.
Have a good summer? Oh, yeah. Summer's well. It's good. I just got back from vacation.
Hey, Lisa.
Going over good? England. That's good. Nice. It's your turn, Frank. Yep, you're up.
I'd like that.
Good evening, Fran Zaretti, Smart Growth Design LLC, the applicant for the Pointer Hills Farm. With me this evening, Peter Freeman, Freeman Law Associates, and Bob Engler, SCB LLC, representing me regarding 40B for laws and regulations. To recap, we had a work session last week regarding sewer infrastructure, and we tried to take it to a level of getting off the technical end and trying to get into the financial end regarding mitigation costs, and try to come up with a conceptual proposal to try to solve the ongoing sewer situation. Based on the math and looking at reports that AECOM did for us regarding the numerous studies, with the sewer system, we found that there were several segments that needed to have worked on mitigation work, some without the development, some existing conditions, and then there was several more that were exacerbated by the proposed project that needed additional mitigation. I'm looking at 4 sections that we feel have existing capacity problems based on the 80% rule that was used, that we had to use based on Weston Sampson's criteria. We found that the town had 4 areas that are over capacity right now. And we also found about 7 or 8 more using the 80% criteria that was a result of our project going online on top of the existing flows in the system. So we had some general consensus back in the June meeting with Weston and Sampson that there was some general agreement that these were the issues that were found based on capacity. Now it was a matter of prorating who was going to pay for what and what the numbers would be based on some estimates for the remediation work. Looking at the 2 pump stations on the project and Cherry Street Pump Station and the several lines that needed to be increased in size, the total cost of all that work combined came out to be $2,872,000 is the estimate. When we looked at what areas were existing conditions and what areas were resulted from the proposed development, the fees came out to be approximately $1,656,000 was existing conditions that should be corrected that are there now by the town. And then our incremental cost associated with our project was $1,216,000. So in round figures, 60% was existing conditions that should be corrected. That's a town problem. And the other 40% is incremental costs associated with our problem. So our proposal was to try to come up with some formulation to say how much we can put into the mitigation to try to move this off center to try to bring a conclusion to the project, because this seems to be the most gating issue right now to close out the project. Looking at sewer and water connection fees for the project based on the formulas and based on the layout of the project, the sewer connection fees that we have to pay comes out to $1,783,000, and the water connection fee, privilege fee, is $575,000. So we have to pay sewer and water connection fees based on the town formulas of $2,358,000. So when you look at our proposal, we were paying the full amount of the fees of $2,358,000, and we're also offering $1,216,000 towards the incremental fees. So that's kind of what the spirit was, to try to work within the confines of Chapter 40B based on existing conditions that have to be borne by the town, and incremental costs have to be borne by the developer. And looking at the flow studies, the capacity studies, and financial estimates for the work, we tried to come up with some type of numbers so we can bring this to a conclusion. So that's where our presentation was in a nutshell at that work session that we had last week. Subsequent to that, we received a letter from Weston and Sampson at 3 o'clock today saying that in their opinion, there's no problems with capacity in the town sewer system. Well, we spent several months proving the fact with their oversight that there are problems in the existing sewer system using the 80% rule. Using the 90% rule, or 95% actually, we found that there wasn't. When they switched over, they said that now there is. So there is. So it's a fact. We're just trying to work within the 40B laws to prorate this and to come to a conclusion. So that's where we're at. If you look at the draft decision, it stated clearly that there'll be no waivers given on fees, and it also stated that we have to pay for all the sewer upgrades and all the water upgrades, and that certainly makes the project uneconomically feasible based on the law.
A couple questions. One is, isn't there also an issue with the water line as well?
There's a water line that was there, I think 2,900 feet. It has a polyvinyl coating in it, which is hazardous, and it has to be replaced. That's about $750,000 to do that. The town has that budgeted in 2018 capital expenditures for that because it's a pre-existing condition. We're only tying in a very small piece at the end of that line for pressure only. We don't have flow problems, we have pressure problems. So based on existing conditions, that is an existing condition. However, if we have a water fee of $575,000, the town, if so desires, could use that to help offset that $750,000 pre-existing condition. So that's where the water stands at this point.
Okay, and my other question, which would kind of relate to this, would be on the sewer upgrades. I guess first questions are for you. Is the mitigation, the town's mitigation, in our plan, our sewer plan, in terms of repairs, in terms of upgrades?
So the upgrades are in the town's plans, but probably a good 5 to 7 years down the road.
So I guess
so they would be done eventually.
Right.
And Mr. Haverty could probably state some other things. We were in the technical meeting with the applicant last week, and we made it clear that today in our budget there is no funds to make upgrades.
Right. So I
the
guess my
system is
question
operational
why should we
today.
accelerate? Why should there be a burden on the town to accelerate 7 years from now? What we're planning on doing then?
For the record, Peter Freeman, Freeman Law Group, there are a couple of reasons. I think it's glossing over the history of the acquiescence that we believe we had with Weston and Sampson, that actually it's not only 5 to 7 years down the road, that it actually is at that 80% analysis that Fran mentioned. Several sections are at capacity or over capacity now. So we don't agree factually, number one. Number two, without standing on legal principle, I don't think it's absolutely a foregone conclusion that something that's relatively near in the future has to be borne by the developer, number one. Number
we
two,
can wait.
well, you can,
I'm more than happy to wait 7 years.
well, but the fact is, if you're going to spend it, and again, we hadn't heard 5 to 7 years. Okay, that wasn't discussed at the workshop meeting.
Well, and one thing I think should be understood is we're not talking about a single issue, a single upgrade.
Right.
So that there may be a continuum as to what needs to be done. There may be things that need to be done within the next 2 years.
Right.
And other aspects of it that might be 5 to 7 years out. So it's not simply, this is all going to get done right now, or this is going to get done in 7 years. There may be, it would be incremental. If this project doesn't happen, those upgrades will be incremental. They won't all happen at the same time.
Right, I get that, but, so I guess my point is why should the town bear the immediate
And I'll
costs?
allow Attorney Freeman to continue.
Let me finish with the
on that.
practical.
Go ahead.
and then I'll
Back to the
chime in.
the legal reason, and I
Yep.
know that, attorneys can disagree and all of that, but
Yep.
on the practical side, it's because, in part, what Paul just said, again, we don't believe it's accurate that everything can wait 5 to 7 years. But whatever the time frame is, it's a bird in the hand. If we work this out and the project goes forward and a substantial amount of fees are paid to the town, and you can put them towards your share plus other things, and then you have those improvements done at a substantially lesser cost to the town ultimately. So that's the pragmatic side. On the legal side, I absolutely would say it's not at all a foregone conclusion that the town can just say, no, we know you need it for your 40B project, but we're not going to allow you to do it. The town has to have some real technological reason that they can't feasibly do it. And it is not unfeasible for the town to do it. The fact that they haven't budgeted money presently, that's not the developer's problem. So I don't think it's at all black and white that, you would win on a 40B case, which we'd rather not go there, obviously, but since the topic came up, I suppose no surprise, I've litigated dozens and dozens of cases at 40B, and I know the case law, and I don't think it's at all a foregone conclusion. I would think we would have a strong case that the town has to come up with a really solid argument under the regulations that there's some physiological, topographical, site type of reason why the sewer can't be made to accommodate. And again, in view of that is where I stress the pragmatics. Not to blow my own horn, but, our approach has been to try to work it out, and Paul's worked with me. I always try to work things out. Sure, I do the HAC cases, but, I also work out a lot of compromises, a lot of back and forth, and, there is the bird in the hand theory, as I said, that the town will know that they will have this accomplished, and they're going to save a lot of money, even if it's done in the next few years. I mean, when you talk about a time frame, sure, we hope for a good decision at the next hearing, let's say, or very soon thereafter, but it's going to take another year before it's built and all of that, so time's going to elapse anyway, where the town will much sooner than you're thinking now be wishing that they could have those improvements.
Excuse me, and Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add, in terms of sense of urgency or not, waiting, the sewer pipe under Route 9 is way over capacity right now. It's surcharging. Because the surcharging hasn't caused damage yet, the town's saying, well, it's still running okay. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, this type of thing. However, because it's over capacity, and the town's looking between the Route 9 corridor and the Route 20 corridor, there's a lot of land there. There's still commercial land, there's industrial land, there's other things. They can't tie into that sewer now because it's over capacity. So by rectifying that problem there, it's going to enhance what the town's been looking for, is a commercial industrial base, and there's properties in that corridor that cannot now tie into that sewer because, in theory, it's way over capacity, and it should be a moratorium set on that pipe. So we want to get around all that and make it work for everyone as well. So that's why there's a little more sense of urgency than just to sit and wait.
And I think you can refer to the letter from Weston and Sampson dated today, which I will state that it was by request that this letter was sent out, because my understanding of what Weston and Sampson had previously reviewed was their position was that while there are a number of issues that need to be addressed at some point in the future with regard to the system in this area, there wasn't anything that, as of right now, had to be done to continue to function as existing with the existing flow going to it. So I'll just quickly read what it says. While the investigations identified issues of concern that will likely need to be addressed in due course through the town's existing and ongoing inflow and infiltration program and sewer pump station capital improvement program, the stations and gravity sewers have been functional. As it stands today, the system is operating to meet the town's existing uses, and there are no existing issues identified which require immediate resolution. So I think that, this board can look at this and say, it can dig its heels in and say, absolutely no, this letter says we don't need to do any work today. But it can also look at it and say that they have identified some capacity issues there that realistically need to be addressed. Maybe they don't need to be addressed today, but the town's already acknowledged that before this process started that they were going to need to be addressed. It may have to take another look at whether they have to move that schedule up based upon the review work that's been done by Weston and Sampson, because those stations hadn't been previously reviewed, and I don't think they've been fully reviewed yet either way. This has been more of a cursory review on those stations. There is some gray area here. There's gray area all over the place. There is risk associated for both sides. Okay, if this board issues a decision and says that it is not going to waive any fees and is not going to essentially allow the town to make a contribution, there is the potential that they're going to appeal. That appeal could be successful, and the result of that appeal could be an order from the Housing Appeals Committee instructing this town that it has to perform those upgrades to allow this project to go forward. The risk on the applicant's side is twofold. So the risk on the applicant's side is twofold. They could spend all that money litigating this issue and have the HAC make a determination that it's the project that is causing the immediate need, in that if the applicant wants to move forward immediately, they need to make those upgrades. Or they could win and have that decision saying that's the town that needs to make those upgrades immediately. Okay, but their other part of their risk is, even if they spent the money and were successful, there's a time risk associated with it and how long that's going to take. So once again, there is gray area all over the place associated with this. And I think that the parties would do well to consider that in making their decisions.
Can I ask a question? So in the work session last week, we asked for your final, or your best offer for mitigation. Is what you presented this evening the 1.216 million for sewer upgrades your best offer at this time?
Highest and best offer is like an auction type of thing, but to answer your question, Kristen, through the chair, we obviously need to run pro formas now, and I think running the pro formas will dictate, is that where we're at, or can we do a little more? Can we do 50-50 rather than 60-40? We need to do that as our next step, and I think prerequisite to that would be kind of hard to say, we'll give you this or give you that, and then try to retrade it later on. So we tried to come up with the math at 60-40 based on the flows, based on prorating, based on the 40B regulations. Now, looking at the pro forma, is there any other flexibility we have? We might run a sensitivity analysis at certain levels of participation to see what we can do to give the highest and best offer and come up with that number. And we're going to be doing that between now and the next meeting to come up with some finite analysis with that. So is that our highest and best offer? I can't answer it tonight, but we can probably give you some more quantified numbers at the next meeting once we run through this iteration. I don't know, Paul, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, so one thing that I've pointed out to this board in the past is that I don't see a lot of value in pro forma reviews. I just think that it extends arguments and doesn't really get you to a place where you can help make a decision.
Totally in concurrence with that.
But in this instance, where you're talking about something that is so finite as to the impact of the payment of the sewer infrastructure, I think that it does help to get that sensitivity analysis for this board, to get a pro forma that says, if the applicant pays the entirety of the sewer improvements, that this is the profit level. If they pay 50%, this is the profit level. If they pay 25%, this is the profit level. And if the town pays all of it, that this is the profit level. And then this way the board knows sort of whether or not their decision is rendering the project uneconomic. That does not mean that the board
Does
is
that-
obligated
Okay.
to render a decision that renders it, that keeps the project uneconomic based upon the applicant's pro forma. One aspect of that will be that the board will retain a pro forma peer reviewer to take a look at that pro forma and see whether or not that the peer reviewer agrees with those numbers. Presuming that there is agreement, and that they say at whatever level will render the project uneconomic, then the board has to make the determination. All right, so now you're facing the risk of imposing a decision that renders the project uneconomic. You're going to know that going to the Housing Appeals Committee.
Correct, but
Which
if we
means you
don't-
have to be right on the law, or you're going to lose on the facts.
So aren't we better off not doing a pro forma?
No, because it's, all that is information to you, to help you make your decision.
Except it's drawing a line at that point.
It'll be drawn one way or the other at some point. At least you'll have that information knowing. If this board believes that a decision will render the project uneconomic, but it wants to issue that decision anyways, that decision is going to be based upon a legal analysis to say that we think that we're right, that we think that the impacts are being caused by the applicant's project, not by existing inefficiencies or problems in the town system. So it doesn't pigeonhole you. You can still make whatever decision you make. You're just going to be making it with the best information possible.
I think, Mr. Chairman, looking at the initial pro formas we submitted, we had 300 units, whatever the case may be, and we didn't really know the sewer fees or the mitigation. And it was basically not a very lucrative project. I think they were allowed 400 basis points over the 10-year treasury as the benchmark that they use, whatever. So we're uneconomic way back. Now we cut the number of units down through the process. We changed things around, and now we know the sewer and water fees, and now we know the mitigation. It's a question of how much more uneconomic is this analysis going to show, but we're already there. But it still doesn't kill the project at this point until we run these numbers, and hopefully they'll still be buildable. So that's the exercise we have to do.
And that is a reality of Chapter 40B as well,
So
which
my
is you can have a
question is-
project that is legally uneconomic, but that an applicant is still willing to move forward on, that they are willing to move forward on a projected profit that is less than the minimum that would be allowed if they had to take an appeal.
Okay.
So presume that the threshold for uneconomic on a return on total cost is 6%. An applicant can move forward with a pro forma that shows 4.5% as long as they can get funding from a subsidizing agency at the end of the process, which is something that they will always have to keep in mind when agreeing to any reductions or increased costs, is that they're going to have to get an approval from a subsidizing agency, which will generally include, this is an NEF project, right?
Excuse me?
This is an NEF project, so they're going to have to get a bank to lend as the NEF lender in conjunction with the subsidizing agency. So they're going to have to get a loan on the project. So it's going to have to pass muster with the bank as well. So those are the considerations.
I'm sorry to Fred was not here at the last hearing. I just want to make sure we have the paperwork correct.
He's already signed it, and I've
So
already signed it.
we have a Mullins letter, and I
can
don't want to
sign, yeah.
forget that before
Yeah.
the
No, I
hearing's
had-
over, so.
I was on top of that one. Thank you.
This means that Fred has watched the tape of the last hearing, so we would have a full 5-member board to vote at the end. Thank you.
Any, Lisa?
I'm itching. Okay, so before we talk about pro forma and financial, I'm still at the discovery and fact-finding stage. So what I'm hearing is we have our appellant saying that there are some pre-existing conditions that the town, he feels the town should be responsible for in terms of water and sewer really. But he is willing, and he believes his project will add some additional cost. We have our peer reviewers saying that those pre-existing conditions are working fine, and there is a plan in place. We're hearing 5 to 7 years. We have to confirm
For
that.
some of the larger things, but some of the smaller things may be done.
Ongoing. Some of the smaller things are ongoing, some of the larger things are,
It would be
Okay.
an further out process.
Yes.
So I look at us as the one objective party here. I'd like to think of us as the one objective party here. What I would have liked to see in the letter from our peer reviewers, or maybe we can ask them, is a recommendation on should there be any, now that we have this opportunity, I'll look at it as an opportunity, to really look at our current sewer system and get answers to what we should all agree were unknowns before this. Would they recommend any change to our current plan for capital expenditures towards sewer? And then we can prioritize what of those really needs to be, they said not immediate, but maybe there's something that has to be done sooner rather than later, and maybe our appellant would change his mitigation a little bit based on that. That's what I'm getting from this last conversation before we even get into the pro forma.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, and through you, Lisa, in terms of facts, looking at a report, a final report, Town of Shrewsbury, Cherry Street Project Area Hydraulic Capacity Analysis, February 2010. Conclusions and recommendations, this is Weston and Sampson's report to the town, well before we even were here. The hydraulic capacity analysis of the project area in Cherry Street shows that there's not enough existing capacity to handle estimated peak wastewater flows. We recommend television cameras to inspect 15 manholes. And we have isolated Cherry Street, manhole 2E, 2B, South Street easement, total 988 feet on these manholes. Please note that hydraulic capacity analysis assumes ideal pipe conditions for theoretical flows using Manning's equation. It does not account for obstructions, grease, roots, sags, broken pipe, sediment, etc., that may even further affect flow. These factors may negatively affect the theoretical hydraulic capacity, and there could be a greater likelihood of surcharging conditions in the pipe, and that's what's happening now. So Weston and Sampson, by fact, in 2010, states there's problems. Their letter contradicts that at 3:30 this afternoon.
But Fran, that was before they took the landfill off of that, right?
Right.
Yes.
So there's been a reduction in the flow there.
The landfill, I think, was back in 2010. I don't know when they actually
It wasn't
switched
until
off.
2013 that the landfill switched over.
Okay.
That could be the reason for that inconsistency.
But the landfill is off now, and we did hydraulic studies, and we did inspections, and the pipe is surcharging on the Route 9 now without the landfill, so there's still an existing problem, to answer your question about facts.
Well, and I would say they had an opportunity in their letter today they wrote that previous report, and they've worked with you in these technical review meetings. If that's the letter they submitted to us, then they stand by it. But I would like to see what would they recommend now. That was 2010. What would they recommend now? Do you understand what I'm getting at? I don't think they're going to go back to their 2010 report but we're basing our sewer plan and our capital expenditures based on previous reports. We now have new information. They're saying right now we're okay. We don't need to do anything immediately, but should we do something a year from now, 2 years from now? They didn't answer that in that letter.
We do have a plan in place, I believe.
Well, I think Lisa's
We need to
question is whether or
revisit
not that should be revisited
Yes.
based upon the review that has occurred with regard
And
to
I
this
think
project.
that letter is incomplete in that regard, is what I'm saying for
Because-
our
and
board.
again, as I noted, I asked them to prepare this letter, and I probably created a problem where it shouldn't
Sure.
have been.
I understand
But
that
My
completely.
understanding from the previous discussions with them was that they had concerns with regard to the system as it's functioning. But technically speaking, there's nothing that needs to be immediately done.
Okay.
Which is to say that if a regulatory agency walked in and looked at it and said, either your system is functioning appropriately today or it's not, they would
Yep.
say it's functioning appropriately today.
Without the appellant's project and without any other project added. So, right.
But I think that having done this review, they would like to see improvements done because the theoretical models that they're using are definitely showing a potential problem could occur.
We used, when we analyzed this pipe months ago, we used 95% capacity. And when Jamie Walsh was here, she said there's no capacity problems in the system. Okay, and that's what we went on. I have a slide for that, and I paid it for that, but now we got this, okay? But having said that, when we changed to the 80% rule, we found out that these capacity problems. The 80% rule was generated by Weston and Sampson. So
But
if
from
they,
what I
if they,
remember back then, there was no one that used the 95% standard.
it's okay, that's what we use, okay? It may have been an error. So if it was an error, we changed to the 80%, we did that.
Right.
But using their criteria at 80%, we now have found that there's several capacity problems in the sewer system, and they said it. And if you look at the July 27th meeting, the video, on the minutes 52, 30 seconds plus, Hillary said that they in general agreement with us that the capacity issues we found are in fact in general agreement. They didn't know how we were going to solve the problems, but they were in general agreement. It's in the videotape. If you want to play it, June 27th, minute 52 and 30 seconds, you'll see her presentation. So there's an agreement that there's capacity problems.
I agree.
And I think that's where the confusion
Sure.
is probably going to continue to happen.
Yes.
Right.
Which is, there is a review for what would be allowed to connect to the system moving forward, and that's taking in safety factors, and that's what the 80% really is, right? And then there is, how is it actually functioning on the ground today? And so on the one hand, Weston and Sampson is saying, if you're going to let anybody else connect moving forward, these are our concerns, and we think that you should be including this safety factor before you allow another connection. And that's, they're looking at
Regardless of
that
what it is,
on one
yeah.
hand. And then on the other hand, they are looking at, in terms of, is there an existing problem that needs to be corrected today? They're saying, well, how is it functioning today? Are we having an existing problem that would cause us to be in a regulatory noncompliance situation? And they're saying no. So that's how the two seemingly inconsistent positions actually line up. But I don't know if this ever goes to any sort of a hearing process at Housing Appeals Committee, which one of those is going to win the day.
So there's a risk on both ends.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's on the table today is what you read. I would love to hear what you read again, the last part of what you proposed to us, the 1 point.
To 1.2 million. See, the situation is, when you put the sewer and water connection fees, the town has the right to put that fund anywhere in town. They might have a problem that's really bad today, and they can take our money, and they don't have to, it's not allocated to this project. But if you look at I&I problems in our area, which Weston and Sampson said there was, and we have an I&I component in that fee, certainly that I&I should be part of the sewer line, because if it's leaking and we're paying the money, it should fix this pipe. So these are things that the town will not have to pay any money for, because it's going to come out of our fees and our mitigation of the 2 point whatever for the fees and the other 1.2. It's not costing the town any money if they use all our funds for this area. Now, if they want to allocate it to other areas, I understand they have the right to do that, then my argument doesn't hold water or hold sewer, if you want to be facetious.
So Fran, at the work session, we also discussed that your $2.9 million for sewer upgrades was based upon public bidding. Has your team had a chance to review that number of what the cost would be if it was privately done?
If this was done on the private bidding, and we did the work rather than the town, and if you could avoid prevailing wages, monies can be saved. We're hearing different factors now, 10%, 15%, 20%, but it's indicative that right now, because construction is busy, contractors won't have to work for less money with developers. They can say, if you want us to work, you pay us close to what we're getting from municipal work, and we'll do your work. If not, you're going to wait. So it's kind of ambiguous to answer your question, but there is definitely a savings. We don't know how much yet, but there is a savings that we could add into the pot.
And so
We did the work.
The thought process there is, rather than having the applicant pay connection fees and the town say, all right, we've received these fees, we're going to now take this money and direct it towards these upgrades, right, which the town would do and the town would pay prevailing wages for. Well, the other alternative would be that this board could waive connection fees to a certain extent, with the understanding that it's the applicant's responsibility to make these corrections, put a deadline on when they would have to be done or whatever. And then the applicant, in doing that work, can do it less expensively.
So theoretically, we'd be getting more bang for the
So,
buck.
correct. So the money that would theoretically may have been going to do that work either way can now get more work for you. That's the theory behind it.
Mr. Chairman, Wayne Bell at Waterman Design. Just back to the discussion as to when the landfill had come offline and was rerouted back in 2013. I'm looking at a letter from a draft report from Weston Sampson dated September 29, 2014, addressed to Mr. Zaretti, and it copied Bob Tedeschi, Jeff Howland, and Dan recommendations, there's one section under pipelines that it says the estimated peak flows exceed the design capacity and some gravity sewers from the Cherry Street pump station discharge to the town interceptor, which pretty much supports what they said in 2010. Again, there is insufficient or lack of capacity within the existing system.
Except, as I understand it, and we're definitely getting beyond my depth, we're talking about a difference between estimated flows and actual flows, and whether or not, as a design capacity, there is sufficient flow, or whether currently as operational it's sufficient. And to me, that's what seems to be the sort of dissonance here.
If one looks at, I'd love to go back in time here, if one looks at my original assumption that if the town landfill was on this line at 95,000 gallons a day and it was removed and went down to Walnut Street, and I'm coming in with a new project at 35,000 gallons a day, there shouldn't be any problem, because it was already 1/3 of what was in there and it's gone the other way, and all of a sudden, when we did this analysis, we have an overcapacity problem. So intuitively, I would say that if I put my 35,000 gallons a day in that system today, it would still flow through that pipe. It might surcharge a little more, it may not, because it's only 1/3 of what was originally going in there when the landfill was there. But that's my assumption when I said we didn't have a sewer problem, and then it turned upside down as we went through the process. So that's kind of what I was hoping for it to be, but it turned around mathematically that it's now overcapacity. Empirically, it may not be.
You got anything else? You guys?
I'm all set here.
Anyone in attendance? Peter?
Peter Riley, 19 Pheasant Hill Drive. Mr. Chairman, question for you. Under normal circumstances, when a developer or a resident wants to connect to the sewer, they come before the sewer commission, and there's no negotiating on the connection fee aspect. Is there something different about this process that puts that responsibility on the ZBA versus the sewer commission?
Comprehensive board. We're the only board that anyone's dealing with for this project.
So under Chapter 40B, the Board of Appeals issues all local approvals. They are every single local board for issuing local approvals. And under Chapter 40B, an applicant has the right to request waivers. So part of the waivers that they can request is waiver of local permit fees.
And as far as the ZBA is concerned, for public knowledge, I'm going to say that I'm a member of the sewer commission, and we put in place certain protocols in which to gauge different applicants that come before us, and so as a town board, we have these protocols that we apply to all of the different applicants that come to us. Do any of those protocols come into play in this situation, or is this just a complete, if we hold one developer, let's say Spags, to our existing normal protocols, and they pay $2.3 million to connect to the sewers because of their development there, and this board decides that this particular developer doesn't have to make any connection fees, is that feasible?
When you say is it feasible, is it allowable? The answer is yes.
Okay.
We can pretty much do what.
So I guess the question to the board is, please understand that, these decisions, impact, the other aspects of.
That we are well aware of, yes.
But also understand that another applicant for a non-subsidized housing project cannot come in front of you and say, you have to waive our fees because of 40B development.
True.
Because it's a very, very different situation.
No, but.
When I spoke earlier about risk, I mean, that's something that the applicant has to weigh. That's something that this board has to weigh in its decision-making process, is if we move in a certain direction, we make a certain decision, can that be upheld? What are the odds that it would be? What are the impacts if it's not? That's not something you would generally have to weigh, when an applicant comes to the Board of Sewer Commissioners, because it's usually not an option. They don't have the sort of leverage that a 40B applicant would have.
And as I'm sure the board is aware, okay, any foot in the door or any angle that developers or homeowners, can leverage, that they will, to potentially the detriment of the town and the board from that standpoint. So I guess my takeaway to the board is understand that, we've got a moratorium in town on connecting or extending the sewers. The reason we've got that is because of the incredible burden, financial burden, that the town is already feeling with the different protocols coming down from the EPA and things like that. And we've only got so much capacity in the system that we have, and if we're not prudent in how we use that, everyone in town is going to be under that financial burden moving forward.
Mr. DiPaolo?
Morris DiPaolo, 18 Willard Ave. I'd like to follow up on what Peter said. As a member of the Board of Selectmen, and only speaking for myself as a member, I have to tell you, maybe there's nothing we can do about it, but it's really disturbing to me that the Board of Selectmen as the Water Commissioners and the Sewer Commissioners have no say in this process. I think, and no disrespect to the ZBA, but I think we both know financial condition and the long-term capital projects before us, because we deal with it all the time. And I just find it unbelievable that a decision like that can be made without input from either of those boards. If this was a water project, which it isn't, and we're talking about waiving a water connection fee, and we have to do some work on the pipe regardless of the water pipe. But financially, we would probably have to borrow money, and we may have to borrow money in the sewer, from the sewer work to put this project in. And I understand 40B and I understand the purpose of it, and I'm not opposed to affordable housing in general. But this is more than creating more than a level playing field. And it concerns me a lot that the two boards that are supposed to oversee the operation of those systems wouldn't have input into whether or not this would happen. I would hope if it comes to that your board would request a lot of information from the town manager on the financial situation of those two entities before you make a decision, because I think it's going to have a big impact. Taking these projects, if we have to do them earlier than we plan, is going to take away from other projects in the system. Now, I understand in 40B, the powers that be don't care, but we care because we have priorities too. All of a sudden, this 40B becomes a priority, and I know that's the way it is. I just have to say it's really disturbing.
Respond quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to make it very clear, while this board is the board that would be the one to grant waivers of any connection fees, certainly that does not mean that the boards that are generally the ones that do that process, that oversee that, can't give input. In fact, I mean, it's very, very helpful for this board to receive input from the boards from whom they're supposed to be acting for, because that's the sort of support that is required, really, under Chapter 40B for this board to make an informed decision.
Just a follow-up?
Sure.
I would hope if that's the case, and I'm glad to hear that, but I think you would try to get background information anyways, that my understanding is this process is supposed to end next month?
September 30th.
19th.
Well, September 30th is what we're on extension, so our next meeting is the 19th.
I would suggest if you're going to have to take a look at that think just to put the information together for you and have it presented to you and have you digest it and be able to make a decision, it's going to take a month. So I know we're up against the time limit here, but, you know, I think in fairness, you're going to need more time.
So can I just ask a clarifying question to the applicant? The applicant, to my understanding, has not formally requested a waiver from any of the fees. Is that correct? Or this evening, were you requesting waivers from the fees?
We didn't request anything at this
So
point.
at this time, no fee waivers have been requested. I just want to clarify that for the
Right,
board.
so there's two ways that they can get to where they're trying to get to. One is to simply say that the town is required to do the work and that they will make a contribution to whatever the cost of that work is. The other way to do it is to say that the applicant would do the work and the town would make the contribution, and that contribution would come via waiver of fees. So I don't think there has been a determination or a request by the applicant as to which way they want to go on that. The idea is that if the applicant is the one that does the work, the cost would be less, and therefore the town's contribution would be less.
Peter?
Yeah, just I guess a second follow-up to that. It sounds to me that what the applicant was saying tonight was that they will pay the connection fee, but they want the connection fee to apply to any work that needs to be done.
Correct.
And to me, again, there's the issue of the connection fee, which historically is allocated to the connection fee and is used to pay for the sewer system and the ongoing upkeep of that. And if there's any additional work that needs to be done, that's separate. Okay? By the applicant saying that they want to pay the sewer connection fee and use it for this other thing, why don't they just say, hey, we'll pay for the work that we need to do because we're adding volume to your system, but don't charge us the connection fee. It's the same thing.
Well, that's effectively what one of the options is, yeah.
Right. So, again, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, gosh, we got a nice little shell game going on. Let's put a little bit of money under this shell and use it for 3 or 4 different areas, and spin it that we're really benefiting the town.
Well, the benefit that way is the developer is exempt from prevailing wage laws. So if the developer does the work.
No.
Yeah.
I think you misunderstood what I said. I understand the prevailing wage law, but what I'm hearing the applicant say is, we'll pay the $1.2 million in connection fee. Yes. We want the town to then go and do the work.
Right.
Okay, and not charge us any more for that. Okay? There is another alternative that they go and do the work themselves, but I would assume that they would still pay the connection fees in that way. Again, this is a perfect example of the shell game. What exactly are they saying?
My only comment is, the reason I don't think it's, to be honest, fair to call it a shell game is we said perfectly openly just now that we are not ready to tell you exactly what the last offer is or best offer is, because this all came up over the last few weeks in the workshop, and it was suggested, I think, by Paul Haverty that the pro forma, which normally he doesn't think could be useful, but in this case, and so we acquiesced. We agreed that we would do it, and Fran said that. So we're trying to do the exact opposite of a shell game. We're trying to really get our handle on the numbers, look at the different alternatives, and then discuss it with you further and hopefully reach a mutual meeting of the minds, which in part incorporates what this zoning board member said, some discussion with your consultant, Weston and Sampson. So, it's in flux, but it's not in flux because we're playing a shell game. It's just the opposite.
So, there's an open question that hasn't been addressed yet with regard to the timing. You're saying that you're going to provide a pro forma. The board would then retain a peer review consultant to review that pro forma. How soon do you think you can get that pro forma to the board so that we can get it off to the consultant for review?
The plans have been circulated out today to contractors to get real numbers on the building costs and on the site costs. We have to revise the existing pro forma from 300 units to 248. Look at the bedroom counts. We have to do a market study of current rent analysis for the cash flow analysis. We're collecting that data now. Bob Engler's working on that. As soon as we have all the input for the formulas for the program, we'll run the program. It may be a couple more weeks before we get that. If we need another extension, we'll be glad to grant it.
And that's sort of where I was
Well,
going
we-
to, because
well,
we're going to need, I would think, at least 2 weeks for the peer review consultant to get it, do her own review.
What
and
we were
prepare
thinking, and if it
something.
takes another extension now, we could, perhaps give it. But what we were going to ask is, rather than have a good chance of not having it ready, including the peer review completed by September 19th, is it possible to meet on September 26th?
No, we have
We have a
town
special
meeting.
town meeting.
Oh, okay.
When's the next ZBA meeting after
What
the
would be the next
26th?
date after?
October 31st.
October 31st, we could meet before that and just have it a 40B.
We may be able to have a special
Yeah.
October meeting.
Yeah.
And my kids won't be
game
happy
for
if I'm
that.
here in Halloween.
Yeah.
Do it 2 weeks before the 31st.
If we gave to October 31st with the condition that if we have the information done sooner than that, we could have a special,
Well, we should schedule it for
I should- yeah, you
the
wanna s-
17th.
If we're
with
not-
an extension through the end of the month.
Right.
Are we going to continue the hearing that's currently scheduled for the 19th now?
No.
Okay, so.
We just know that it's
We would
wait
hold
until we
that
just
date.
know we're not going to.
And then
have information.
we can set the next date
Right,
at
at
that
the
hearing.
19th meeting, yeah.
Well, is there
Based
a
on whether or
reason
not
to-
we
is there a
have the
reason to
information
meet on the 19th?
That's what we're saying now, right?
I mean, that's what
Well,
I'm
I
saying.
think we
that
should keep the hearing continue to the 19th in case there is any open information that becomes available at that time that you would like to discuss or the board would like to discuss.
But there will be a presumption that there will be a continuance.
But there would be a
otherwise.
presumption that it would be continued.
Is the 19th just for a 40B?
No, the
it's our
September
regular meeting.
19th is a regular zoning board of appeals
Okay, so we're
meeting.
not going to cancel that.
No. So we would need to find a special October date.
October 17th, I believe.
Is October 17th amenable for the 5 board members sitting this evening? Knowing that Monday, October 10th is Columbus Day, so that's a holiday, we're closed.
Right.
We don't think that Monday, the 3rd, we'd have enough information and time to meet, so the 17th or the 24th.
I'd rather go the 17th, just in case.
We need more time, another
more
hearing.
time.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that good for you?
what was the date?
The 17th, October 17th at 7 o'clock?
I'm available. Again, if we have it sooner, we let Kristen know, and then if this makes it sense to try to expedite it, we would, but let's leave it
Yeah,
at the
I believe
17th.
for posting purposes, it's already existing.
Well, the hearing's already scheduled for
Yeah.
the 19th.
The 19th.
If you are able to get the pro forma, basically within a week, to give our peer reviewer 2 weeks to do her review, then certainly we can move forward on the 19th. I only brought it up because it seems like a really tight schedule.
I think it's not gonna happen.
But that's a good idea to keep it as the next
should
continued
keep
date.
it.
And if we inform you that we don't need to come, then,
Right.
you can vote that it's continued to October 17th, which you can actually do tonight as well, but.
And at the 17th, at the September 19th meeting, the board could, or this evening, I'm sure we don't have a formal letter from the applicant, but we would need to vote to extend the decision deadline to October 31st. Excuse me, vote to extend the hearing closing deadline, and then the decision deadline would come after that.
Fran, what's-
Do we vote on that, or we just need consent?
The board needs to vote on that.
Okay.
We'll have a letter for the next hearing.
Okay. Go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
Scott Payne from 70 Stony Hill Road. One question, there seemed to be a $2.9 billion number that was set in the beginning for all of the sewer upgrades, and then there was some division of that money, 1.2, whatever it was, some part from the developer, some part from the town. But it occurs to me, I mean, maybe they don't have to, all that work doesn't have to be done on exactly the same day, but if the whole point is that the system doesn't have enough capacity to accommodate any future stuff right now, I could see how the town could say, okay, well, we'll regulate how much development we have, and we have a plan to get what upgrading we have, and thus we can take it out over whatever number of years that is, 2, 5, 7. But if he's coming in to add all this capacity in, you really can't talk about adding just his sewer fee to cover part of this work. I mean, the town will get stuck with the rest of that bill because you're really gonna have to do all of that work in a relatively short period of time from the instantiation. So that's just another aspect in a way of which this project does overly burden the town and all of the taxpayers within the town. And then just examples of, you know, like the shell game aspect and kind of that he was saying, you know, the arguments like, well, if I don't do this in act capacity, then you can't develop some of that other land out there. Well, no, I mean, if somebody else, any other business came into town and said, I want to do this and I want to build on this piece of property or and I want to need to use the sewer system, you would tell them the regular rules. Here's the price, and if you need to upgrade it because of your development, here's your bill. So it absolutely astonishes me that those normal business rules would not apply to this condition, to this set of things.
The beauty of 40B, write your state rep.
I agree with 40B. I mean, I can understand how 40B might be so you can't shut him out altogether. But it just seems lunacy, and I'm not saying it's that you're doing it, but it's just as a point of frustration that you can't then assess normal business conditions to these, because they're going to make a profit. He's not here for his best interest, you know, he's here for his best interest, I should say it this way. You know, and then the whole pro forma thing, and him talking about the profitability and all. I mean, maybe the profitability part's because the land is too expensive that he's paying for. I mean, there's just so many things that could go into that can skew those numbers and make it very, very difficult to weed out. And then I think back to the original part when, you know, in some of the traffic debates where, you know, Frank come in and said, well, you know, it's $1 million traffic light and I'm going to give it to you. Well, now all of a sudden he's saying $1 million differential in these prices makes this project untenable. So, I mean, just there's no consistency in the numbers. There's no anything other than just a consistent willingness to say, I'll say whatever I need to say to get what I want. And that's been throughout this entire process.
Anybody else? Mr. Gordon?
I disagree with the fact that this is a shell game. This is a gift from our state government to us. It's one of these unfunded mandates. And I think you'll find that the zoning board will do as much as it can, but I don't think you should call this a shell game, because then you look at it as an illegal enterprise. And this is not an illegal enterprise. You have three choices, or we have three choices. Approve it with conditions, or turn it down. Now, if we turn it down, there's a group in Boston who could care less about us, who will take it out and take it out of our hands, and they won't even listen to you. Is that true, Paul?
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far. They will listen.
They don't have our best interests at heart,
Well,
like we would.
They have a statutory mandate.
Yeah.
And that statutory mandate is to facilitate the creation of affordable housing. Okay, so the scales are going to be tipped against the town in a general manner.
Okay.
That's how it works. That doesn't mean that they always rule against the towns.
My
In fact, they
reading
do
is
sometimes
they
rule in favor.
rule in favor of the developer approximately 92 or 93%
of the time.
So the scale is tipped.
Yeah, but
Which is
but-
why it's
and that's
helpful
why
for you
you
to
keep
have a good
talking.
understanding of what the issues are
Right.
before you make the determination that you are going to impose a decision that is going to result in you winding up there.
Right.
Okay, you want to be comfortable with the fact that you at least think that your decision is defensible. You don't want to simply say, and this is when you talk about a 92% success rate, it's because a lot of boards simply say,
No.
we're gonna deny this, I don't care,
Yep.
let them deal with it up there. That's an approach. It's not the approach that this board has taken throughout this process. I would certainly be disappointed to see this board abandon it at this point in time. I think this board should be trying to issue a decision that it believes is defensible. And if that decision is that the board is not going to grant any relief with regard to the infrastructure costs, because it believes that they are attributable to the applicant and not to the town, As long as that you feel like you've reviewed the evidence and that's the correct decision, you should be comfortable making your decision. On the other hand, if you think that there is enough gray area there, that you should be more flexible, then you should be considering that. That's why you should be having this pro forma review to give you the most information you can get with regard to that one. The discussion about whether there's a shell game, well, that's why you want to review the numbers.
Yeah.
Because things did change. Right? This is not the same project that was reviewed by the subsidizing agency at the beginning of the process. The traffic mitigation is now gone. Right? The number of units has reduced. There is an impact with some of the conditions that have been imposed, that are proposed to be imposed by the board in its proposed decision. So the applicant is going to have to review all that, provide this board a pro forma. The board is going to get an independent third party to take a look at that pro forma and let the board know whether or not it's reasonable. I don't think that I've never ever heard of a situation where a pro forma review results in the applicant's expert and the board's expert agreeing 100%. This is the exact number that this project will make for profit. You're going to be dealing with the range. There's going to be disputes over whether this is the right figure or whether that's the right figure. It's to get you a ballpark sense as to what the impacts of your decision are.
You good?
But it's not a shell game.
No.
I don't think any of us should consider it that.
Fran, hold on, Scott. Fran?
Me?
Yeah.
And regarding the comment the gentleman made just now, I take offense to it. He doesn't understand the development business. He doesn't understand the risk involved. He doesn't understand it's a limited dividend corporation where most developers come in and build something and no one looks at their pro formas. It's private. This is public. So despite the fact that 40B has different attributes it gives a developer, it also gives them constraints, it gives them limitations. So because we're getting all this, doesn't mean that it goes to the bottom line profits. It's limited and it can't be done that way. Secondly, as far as the sewage goes, there's 4 buildings in one area, there's 2 buildings in another area, there's 2 separate phases. They're not going to have 35,000 gallons a day turn the switch and it comes on day one. Okay, the project will be built in 2 phases. The buildings will go up a piece at a time. They'll be leased out over time. We don't know when the project's going to start, when it's going to be completed. So that 35,000 gallons a day will be distributed over a long period of time. It's not going to happen in 12 months where it all comes online, where all these impacts are going to happen simultaneously. So there is ways to phase this different development based on the infrastructure needs as the development takes place, if it takes place. And the economy has a lot to do with the rate of this thing going up or not going up. So it's not a foregone conclusion yet that a big profit's going to be made next year and it's all going online. So I just want that aura to be dismissed, if you would. Thank you.
Scott?
I just wanted to follow up the mill. The term shell game, to Peter's point, wasn't about the process of the ZBA in no way. I think he was more talking about the sewer fees and how these numbers are getting broken up and attachments, and that being kind of the money being shuffled around in funny ways was the intent. Not to say anything about the process of this being public, and the fact that it is 40B does make it public, and is why we're all here, Fran. Yes, I mean normally if you weren't meeting 40B, then you would be doing all this on your own books, and nobody would be around to hear any of this. So that it should be a public process.
Anybody else? State your name for the record.
Yeah, Steve Danielson, 75 Stony Hill. So I just had a question about, I guess a little while back, Dan Hill generated maybe some documents or emails to send to you to see if, I was wondering if you had any time to review that as far as like decreasing the size next to some of the houses, more of a townhouse style. I don't know if that's familiar to you, but it was something I guess he discussed to you maybe a month ago, maybe more, to see if you could fit the transition between the larger style buildings that we have, and have more of a transition into the neighborhood. And he showed some examples in various parts of the state that had done some of those sort of transitions. I don't know if you have a comment on that.
The only comment I have is that we changed some of the architecture and the buildings that were in question. We changed the facades, we changed the material, we changed the roofs, but we did not change the entire design to make them townhouses. It was economically unfeasible to do that.
Anybody else? Okay, anybody else up here? Okay, so we're good until
So we should make a motion to continue the public hearing to September 19th at 6:45 PM.
6:45. Can I get a motion?
I move that we continue this public hearing to September 19th at 6:45.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
With the understanding that we will schedule a tentative special meeting for October 17th at 7 PM.
Which will only be a 40B.
Only a 40B meeting, correct?
Okay.
And we will get a letter from the applicant on or before our September 19th
Right.
meeting with the
Extending-
extension
To close the hearing.
to close the hearing by October 31st or later.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Fran.
Goodbye. Nice to see you, Lisa.
Too, guys. Have fun. Go home and watch it.
Are we done yet?
No.
No.
Yes,
You have
we
a
were.
lot
We have
to
to vote.
discuss. I can't wait.
Right, I got that sense, yeah. No sense yet, there's no reason to. Correct.
We will get combative.
So we watch what you get. Save it for when you need it.
No, it is.
See you too. So maybe see you on the. Okay. How you doing? Welcome back.
All right.
Okay, so welcome back, Michelle. Let's vote on. No.
Mike Maroney, new business, I mean.
Oh, okay. Good. New business. 633 Main Street needs an extension.
Good evening.
My name is Michael Maroney. I'm the homeowner at 633 Main Street. My situation is similar to one that came up earlier.
Except yours hasn't expired yet.
Yes, except mine is expired. My situation, an overall scheme to re-side and new windows in the house. And we realized that if we were ever going to do this porch, we should probably do it before we did the re-siding. We hired a contractor. We had the permits for the siding and the windows and a new bulkhead. And the contractor agreed that he would build the porch for us. Unfortunately, he started the work, and we have not been able to get him to come back and finish it.
So you need
Shame on me that I let the variance expire without asking for an
Has it
extension.
expired?
I don't believe it's expired yet. I believe that you're asking for an extension.
You're asking-
to do
yeah,
the
it's
work
not-
before
yeah.
it expires.
Perhaps my misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Well, he's entitled to
A 6-month
one
extension.
6
Yeah, you
months.
can have one 6-month extension.
Okay.
Is what you can get. Can I get a motion?
Move that we grant the gentleman a 6-month extension for 633 Main Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? You're good for 6 more months.
Thank you
So
very
we
much.
will sign a letter, record that at the clerk's office, and then it needs to get recorded at the registry of deeds by you, so you have that extension on your deed.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Let's go back to decisions. 115R Colonial Drive.
Move to approve.
Well, there's a couple conditions. What do you have?
Well, one of the items that I was that the driveway would certainly be narrower than what is shown on the submitted plans. I would anticipate that the board would want to see administratively a drawing of the proposed driveway.
Correct.
We do see the proposed grading on the plans that were submitted. However, if there was any substantial changes to that grading, I would think that the board would want to revisit that as well.
So it's a 10-foot driveway.
And you would want to make sure it's, I think they said 12-foot driveway.
12 feet.
Okay,
12-foot
but all
driveway.
that's required is 10, correct?
Well, for that length, I would say that 12 would be more appropriate for emergency access and those types
Okay.
of things. Also, I heard concerns from the abutters related to clearing of vegetation and trees, and we would hope that that would be limited, both in the easement area.
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah, I
put a
don't wanna put
condition
as a
on,
condition
we
on
can't
it, yeah,
condition that, but I
yeah.
just want to have that we heard that
Right.
the abutters are concerned about the clearing, that the clearing be kept to a minimum both on the easement property as well as the abutters property. Excuse me, the applicant's property.
Okay.
I will probably aggravate everybody, but everything I heard tonight from the neighbors is not in my backyard.
Pretty much, yeah.
Nothing substantial. Just don't build anything else in my backyard.
Right, they may not have been aware that there was a potential to build on that land when they purchased their lots.
Well, I'll go back to what I used to say. If it's empty, buy it. I'm sorry.
Or else look at the registry and see what the deed restrictions
Yeah.
are. Can I get a motion?
I think that we should add the conditions of no further subdivision.
All right, yeah, that's fine, right.
Yeah, no,
Further subdivision.
No further, other than
Yeah, then-
accessory buildings, no other building on the lot.
They agreed to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he agreed to that.
Yeah.
Sheds and the like.
Originally, I was opposed to this project, but now with the new language and knowing of only one house to be built,
Right, okay.
You and Ronnie.
Can I get a motion as conditioned?
Well, Mel made the
Did you make
motion
a
already.
Did we get a second?
Well, I was just adding the condition to
Okay.
the motion that
Yeah.
Mel made to approve, so I restate Mel's
Conditions.
motion that we approve with the conditions we've just described.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Next, 14 Belridge. Clearly the hardship,
Yeah, it's,
and, was the mitigation, more so than anything else.
Move to approve.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next, Tico Builders, where's the property? 810 Fairlawn Circle. Basically, pre-existing non-conforming, put up a second floor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? 491 Oak Street. Put an addition. Questions, comments, concerns? Everyone good?
I don't see that as a problem.
I don't either.
That's the condo.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I will reluctantly agree.
Duly noted. Can I get a motion?
why is that, Bill?
I think it should be a variance, but I understand the Gale argument. And the counselor made compared this situation to the Gale argument to my satisfaction.
Okay.
Although maybe my argument's with the Gale agreement. So I would I move to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next is Main Street, 196 Main Street.
So there's two voting
Two shi-
items on this.
Yep,
One is
parking.
use variance for the optometry office and retail outlet to sell eyeglasses and eyeglass appurtenances. And then the other is the
Parking, the
variance for the
general
parking,
parking, yeah.
which we should be clear about what we're.
And you will deal administratively with,
Let's take the use variance first,
Okay.
if we want to make a motion and.
I think it's a good use for the property.
Yeah,
pretty much
I
a
move
commercial
that
zone at
the,
this point.
I just
I
want to
move
make a
that the
comment.
use variance
I'd like
be
to see
approved.
some type of screening between their property where the parking is along the side and the Pacific,
Right, I think we'll get to that in the next motion.
okay.
Yeah.
So we have a motion to approve the use variance.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, parking. So you want,
No, that's my concern. is
Your
the
screening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
either a small arborvitae hedge or some type of fencing.
So would you be comfortable having that be administratively reviewed by the building inspector's office and the planning department?
Yes, whatever the screening has to be, yeah?
as opposed to a condition? Yeah.
No, I think the condition should be that the screening should be discussed and administratively agreed upon.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's fine.
Is everyone good with that?
I'm fine with
I'm good with that.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Oh, hold on, we have more things that we talked about. That the plans would be revised to show a handicap space and a
Right.
reduction of
We-
one total space.
Right to 14, and the handicap
14.
space is going to be near the, there's two near the ramp.
Closest to the ramp, and then signs for employee parking would be placed on the garage
Garage,
doors. And that they would review the location of the dumpster for the safety of the backing for spaces 11 through 13.
What about snow?
Snow storage, I would think that we would classify that under the screening review by the
administrative. Okay.
administrative.
Yep.
I have no problem.
Motion to approve?
Second? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There's 2 sheets. And last but not least, not so long ago, I don't remember it, it's 6 Jill Circle.
Move to approve.
Extend the deck.
Yeah, we already approved that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, this is right, this is the second time it's been here.
Redo.
Expired, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Old business. Master plan update, targeted zoning committee?
Yes, so master plan update, I was before the Board of Selectmen last Tuesday evening to give them an update on the master plan steering committee's request for master plan implementation committee, and presented a chart of the potential makeup of the implementation committee. The selectmen granted approval of that moving forward, so we will be asking the zoning board for a representative to serve on the implementation committee. And we'll be putting out an overall blanket invitation for interested citizens to sit on that committee as well, so stay tuned over the next few months. The same evening, the targeted zoning committee met, and Mr. George and Ms. Cosette were there on behalf of the ZBA. The main topic of discussion was frontage associated with single-family lots, and how our zoning bylaw right now is very flexible in terms of how frontage is created and then used. And we are coming up with several scenarios to present to the targeted zoning committee and then to the planning board, board of selectmen, and zoning board to kind of solidify something that would work a little bit better for the town related to single-family building lots. So again, another stay tuned.
Okay. And then correspondence, we have 2 letters this month. One from is it West Boylston? Yeah, West Boylston Zoning Board of Appeals, inviting us to a comprehensive permit training session in September at the Westboro Town offices on July 28th. So it's dated
The letter
July
was
28th.
July
Yeah,
28th.
it's Thursday, September 11th, or Tuesday, September 9th.
That's very close to when we're going to be
Yep.
meeting.
The meeting will be held at their town hall from 6:30 PM to 9 PM, if anyone is interested. I guess,
Right, so let myself or Chris
Yeah.
or Michelle know so we can let the West Boylston
Yep.
ZBA know as soon as possible.
that might not be a bad idea.
What are the dates again?
Either Tuesday, September 9th, or Thursday, September 11th, from 6:30 to 9 PM at Town Hall.
I would have an interest in attending, but I prefer the 11th.
I'm good for a Tuesday or a Thursday, so it doesn't really matter.
Do you want us to reach out and say several of our members will be attending?
Yeah. Next, we received correspondence from Ms. Luann Gear, a concerned citizen regarding our decision on the use variance granted last month for Fulginity for the gym on Route 9. She wanted us to reconsider. Since it was a 5-0 decision, I took it upon myself, knowing that I wouldn't vote for reconsideration. Reconsideration has to be unanimous. So I took it upon myself to just say that that wasn't going to happen. She feels that the hardship wasn't exhibited. I feel hardship was exhibited. And to me, it's a dead issue. If she
Ron, you're the chairman.
if she wants to further appeal, she has the court.
She can go to court.
Yep. And I believe that is everything.
So just a reminder, our next meeting is Monday, September 19th, as special town meeting is Monday, September 26th, and there are new hearings scheduled for that date, so we will be meeting at that point. And again, just to recap, the 40B project was continued to September 19th at 6:45. We will determine over the next few weeks if they will request a continuance to October 17th or not at that time.
And just to go over the decisions, 115R Colonial Drive was unanimously approved with conditions. 14 Belridge Drive was unanimously approved. 8-10 Fairlawn Circle, remove and replace an existing non-conforming was unanimously approved. Sign 2 sheets on there. 491 Oak Street, the construction addition on an existing non-conforming was unanimously approved. 196 Main Street, use variance was unanimously approved, and a parking variance with conditions was also unanimously approved. 6 Jill Circle, special permit to extend the deck, which was previously granted and had expired, was unanimously approved.
That's a variance, correct?
Did I say special permit? It says here special permit.
Okay, I think the vote sheet needs to be,
The
we need
vote
to.
sheet is wrong? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Taking this all in.
And can I get a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I got one more to sign.